Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I'm Muhammad Sadul Islam Sarkar. Again in front of you. I'm here. I have come here with some important matters regarding COVID-19 and the children. What about the COVID-19 in case of children? Uh, uh, can babies get the coronavirus disease? I will discuss, are children infected by COVID-19? If infected, what are their percentage? Are children at the same risk with COVID-19 like older adults? I will try to find out some other questions for children. What are the scenario of the children in different countries? Before going this, I will try to give you or show you or say about some studies result, findings from different studies in China, USA, UK, to make it more clear to understand about it, what is the real scenario in case of children infection through novel coronavirus. Uh, First study in China showed that young people are at less risk of serious illness. That means young people means children are at less risk of serious illness due to novel coronavirus infection. But they may spread the virus. There might have some possibility to spread the virus. So it's the findings of one research in China. Another studies in China showed children were rarely diagnosed with COVID-19, very rarely diagnosed. Therefore, presumably had a little role in the spread of the new coronavirus. Uh, Another studies in China, they have revealed that it's very oversimplification that the older adults are in threatened condition, in threatened positions to be infected by novel coronavirus. Young people and children are less likely to die from coronavirus, but their mild symptoms might make them contagious carriers of the COVID-19. Uh, Study 4 in China. Chinese researchers examined infection outcomes in more than 2000 childhood cases of COVID-19. That means they have an examination over more than 2000 children of confirmed COVID-19. What did they find? They found over half of them have mild cold-like symptoms or no symptoms at all. More than 2000 children, childhood cases of COVID-19, they have found half had mild cold-like symptoms or have no symptoms at all. Study 5 in China. The researchers analyzed 2143 cases of children under 18 years old, and this was governed by Chinese Center for Disease Control and Prevention. They had done a study on 2143 children who were confirmed COVID-19. Among them, half had mild symptoms. One third, 39% had moderate symptoms, and 4% had no symptoms at all. Nearly 6%, counting 1 to 5 children out of 2143, have severe illness. Only nearly 6% of the children have or had serious illness or severe illness. 13 were very ill, very serious with respiratory or other organ failure, and rest are classified. 112 children were severely infected with dire respiratory problems. That dire means terrible respiratory problems or horrible respiratory problems, I mean serious respiratory problems. And among 2143 cases of childhood, only 14 years old boy had fallen in die. Another study, I mean last study, is a sixth study in China. It has been widely noted that children are less likely to ill and die. This is the findings of the study in China from the novel coronavirus. They are very less risk to be ill and die due to novel coronavirus infection. A recent study among 44,672 people with confirmed COVID-19 around 10 years, they have found only 1%, less than 1% among 44,672 people, around 10 years old boys or girls, I mean children, have occupied less than 1%, I mean less than 450, and made up less than 1% among 44,672 people. And interestingly, there were about 1,023 people had fallen in death, but there were none among 1,023. I mean, from 44,672 people, 1,023 people had fallen in death, but there were no children case in 1,023. And around 10 years old, it was less than 1%. And maximum were older adults. Now I am going to the out of China. In US, there was a study in US which shows that 38% of 508 patients were hospitalized. I mean, they have done a study among 508 patients of confirmed COVID-19, and they have got 38% were between the age of 20 to 54, and they were hospitalized. And only less than 1% below 19 years among 508 patients, and they had only cold-like symptoms. They did not require hospitalization. They did not require special care. So why the scenery in case of children is different? If now I will discuss why are children in less risk. What do children immune system do? Why do children less likely to die with COVID-19? I will try to find out the answers of these questions regarding children. Why are children at risk of serious illness with COVID-19? I mean, why aren't children at less risk? Why are not children at less? Why are children at less risk of serious illness with COVID-19? Why don't children seem to get very ill from the coronavirus? Another question, related question, why is the new COVID-19 different in case of the children? So, and what do children immune system do when they are infected by COVID-19? I will try to find out the answer of this question. I want to discuss about these questions by four matters. Matter of resisting capacity by the children, matter of producing antibody by the children, matter of immune response, or matter of cytokines activities within the children, and lastly matter of receptor. In case of matter of resistance important in case of children when they are suffering or when they are infected by COVID-19. What has gone through matter of resisting capacity through the children, and it was done, this study was done in London. A scientist, Akiko Wasaki, he is a scientist in Yale University, London. He has done this study and he has revealed this result as like. Akiko Wasaki at Yale University says, this is unlike flu. With flu, young children and young and older adults are usually affected or are usually the most severely affected. That means he is saying that in case of general flu, in case of normal flu, young people, children, older adults are usually be affected in a simultaneous, in an equal way. But in case of coronavirus, in case of novel coronavirus, it's different. So why is the new coronavirus different? Question is, why is the new coronavirus different in case of children? He's saying it's a bit of a mystery. I will try to find where is that mystery in case of children. Because for other flu, children and older adults and young people are suffering in the same way. But why it is different in case of novel coronavirus? Why children are less likely to be infected? A straightforward explanation by Akiko Wasaki from Yale University, London, would be that children are resisting this infection in the first place of attack, producing resistance during their attack. Try to resist the virus at the site of the first attack. Just kill them or stop their multiplication at the site of their entry. I mean, kill at first sight, kill at first feeling, and kill at first suffering. They will produce, children will produce their resisting power, resisting activities when they get information that they are going to be infected by novel coronavirus, and they can produce such an activity by which they can stop or they can kill the virus at the first place. This is the findings of Akiko Wasaki in London. Now, a matter of antibody. What is the situation in case of children? What about their power to produce antibody? This was explained by another scientist from Imperial College of London. He is Mr. Windy. Children may also be benefiting. He is saying children may also be benefiting from their lack of past exposure to coronavirus generally. That means he is saying children were not exposed to the coronavirus at the earliest stage. They have no previous experience, lack of past exposure to the coronavirus. So what will happen due to this? His explanation is people who have lived longer have encountered another coronavirus in their lifetime. So simply they have sufficient antibodies and available antibodies produced due to their previous experience. But matter is, he's saying that the matter is those antibodies produced earlier in the long-lived people, older adults rather than the children. These antibodies are not necessarily to be fit with the novel coronavirus. They will not match they will not match with the novel new coronavirus infection. And sometimes these unmatched or unfit antibodies that had produced earlier in the adult people are sometimes very dangerous rather than the good one. So what happened in case of children? What about the children regarding these antibodies? Okay, fine. Antibodies are produced in older adults, but what about the children response in case of antibodies? Since they are not exposed and were not exposed to the other coronavirus in the previous life, so they don't have antibodies. They don't have unmatched or matched antibodies. If necessary, in case of children, if necessary, they can produce some matched antibodies against novel coronavirus. They can expose sharply, they can respond sharply in the novel coronavirus infection by producing necessary antibodies. They can expose in the time of need by producing requiring antibodies. That means they will not fight with the previously produced antibodies or antibodies having in their bodies. So these scientists are saying that these produced or sufficient or available antibodies having in the older adults will not be matched, will not be fit to protect novel coronavirus. As a new immune system in case of children can respond in early stage of infection with COVID-19, can produce necessary antibodies as required. Now I will try to talk about immune response in children, immune response in older adults. And this is also stated by another scientist. He is from University College London, Mr. Chris. He's saying a complication of COVID-19, SARS and MERS. SARS means severe acute respiratory syndrome. MERS means Middle East respiratory syndrome. In case of all these three, COVID-19, SARS and MERS, in adult is acute respiratory distress syndrome. That means in case of COVID-19, in case of SARS, in case of MERS, it was shown that the older adults are suffering with acute respiratory distress syndrome. Distress means oppressed, depressed, and stressed syndrome. They are suffering from this stress syndrome. What will happen due to this? In case of older adults, where the immune response against the coronavirus becomes overzealous, the immune system or immune response in older adults have become overzealous to those new coronavirus or SARS virus or MERS virus to kill. This overzealous will have a negative effect. It will have a leakage in the lungs, and that will discharge some fluids and immune cells within the lungs, causes life-threatening damage to the lungs in older adults. The resulting leakage of those fluids and immune cells due to overzealous upon the novel coronavirus into the lungs causes big problem. Even if those immune responses are trying to help the lungs by killing or by protecting the novel coronavirus, they can also end up blocking oxygen uptake in the lungs. That means these overzealous condition of the immune response in older adults will have a leakage of some fluids and immune cells within the lungs, and they will cause life-threatening damage to the lungs. Though they are trying to kill the virus, novel coronavirus, they will ultimately end up blocking oxygen uptake in the lungs. So dangerous. So in this case, what do children immune system do? Children immune systems are still developing and are not responding as like adults or older adults. And children's immune systems are shielded. I mean, this immune system in case of children are shielded. Sorry. That means it will act as a protective manner. It will act as a defensive manner. So children's immune system are shielded from this type of dangerous immune response called cytokine storm. This immune response, this immune system, response of this immune system in older adults that had discussed, the leakage of fluids and immune cells is called cytokine storm. So in case of children, this type of jobs, this type of dangerous immune response will never be happened. That is called cytokine storm. That means no cytokine storm or discharge or release from the lungs in case of children when children are getting COVID-19 or similar disease. So what is the conclusion about this immune response or cytokines theory? Children immune systems do not respond accordingly as adults, and immune systems does not allow the leakage of the lungs for the secretion of fluids and immune cells to the lungs. That is called cytokine storm, and which will cause a life-threatening damage to the lungs in case of children. But it has happened and experienced by some older adults. Cytokines theory, I mean immune response, it was also described by another scientist that I have said his name earlier, Akiko Wasaki at Yale University, London. He has also said about the cytokines activities, activities of the immune response in case of children. During such outbreak, it is not related with the COVID-19, he is saying about such outbreak, 2 studies found that children produced relatively low levels of inflammation driving cytokines and ultimately protect their lungs from the damage. That means he is saying during the outbreak of such, 2 studies found that in case of children there were no cytokine release that causes inflammation in the lungs. That means he is saying children produce a relatively low, very low levels of inflammation driving cytokines. Low level of cytokines will be released during that time, and ultimately this condition protect their lungs from the life-threatening damage. Cytokines are secreted in a low level, relatively in a low level in children when they are infected by such. So since SARS is also a coronavirus, COVID-19 is also a coronavirus. So from that experience, Akiko Wasaki at Yale University in London, he is saying that in case of COVID-19 also, it will have a less secretion, relatively less release of cytokines that will cause inflammation in the lungs. But in case of older adults, it will be happening in a regular fashion or regular manner. So these cytokines will cause inflammation, these cytokines will cause lung damage, and these cytokines will cause life-threatening damage to the lungs. So in case of children, this cytokine storm or release of these cytokines is very low. We have seen from this SARS infection, and from the previous discussion, It was also done in SARS, MERS, and COVID-19. So cytokines release in case of children is very low, relatively low in comparison to the older adults. Uh, can babies get the coronavirus disease? Now I will try to discuss this portion regarding receptor, matter of receptor. What are the activity of the receptor within the children? Because during my first video that I have revealed about 1 month ago, there I have said receptor is necessary to have a action either by novel coronavirus or by any other foreign particle. They should have receptor, friendly receptor. I mean, what will be very agonist, not be an antagonist. Agonistic activities should be from a receptor. Otherwise, this coronavirus, this novel coronavirus, or any other foreign particle or foreign body will not be able to reach within the cell. Receptor is must, and maximum activities will be receptor mediated mechanism. And mode of action of this novel coronavirus depends on the fit with the receptor. It's a lock-key relation. If key is not fit with the lock will not be opened. So if coronavirus will have no favorable receptor within the children lungs, they will not be able to enter into the lung cells of the children. So relation with the receptor, I mean ACE2 receptor, ACE2 receptor within the older adult